Thank you everyone for joining us for today's VSA Web Chat. My name is Claire and I am part of VSA's Professional Development Working Group. Our group seeks to expand PD opportunities related to visitor studies to both members and non-members of VSA. And one of these efforts is our Web Chat series. The web chats are intended to be informal discussions, opportunities for people to gather and talk about common interests in our field. And unlike a formal webinar, the idea here is for everybody to contribute to an open discussion so we can learn from each other and follow the conversation thread wherever it takes us. So you can start by introducing yourself in the chat window, which many of you have already been doing. And let's see, we're also recording today's chat. I got some questions about that, and we are recording and we'll be sharing that on YouTube and sending out the link later. Since we don't have a registration process for these web chats, if you would like to receive a recording by email, you can leave your email address in the chat box, or you can send it directly to me if you don't want to put it in the chat, and I'll just type in my email right now. It's claire@rockman.com. So there it is in the chat box, and you can get in touch with me that way. So I'd like to start out by introducing my co-hosts for today, without whom this chat would not be possible. They are Lauren Wilson of Illuminated Ideas and Kate Livingston of Expose Your Museum. Do you guys want to introduce our topics today and the data viz fig?
Lauren, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now? Is this better?
Yep.
Yay, good. Okay. Sorry about that. Little quirks of getting started. But so I'm really excited to see you guys now that I feel like I'm seeing myself. But yeah, we're really excited to get started today. Kate's kind of our head of the FIG, and I'm really helping out with it this year. And so we haven't done a web chat before, but we're really excited to kind of just jump in and talk about what topics are coming to your minds. I know that whenever we were starting to kind of jump in with, the wild world of data visualization and reporting, we were trying to think of what topics are ones that we've had in mind that we would think are interesting. So that's kind of where our agenda came from, but we're really into, making this a conversation that's relevant to everybody. So if you have other ideas and things like that you want to chat about with other people that are interested in data visualization, this is the place. There's tons of people on this call that are also really interested in it. So that's kind of our intent behind this today. We could kind of chosen a couple of
mythical place of sharing our data effectively and making sure it leads to usability. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to do that. And then just a little plug about some things that will happen for those of you going to the conference. We have a slide clinic where we will be meeting with presenters who want to fix their slides up at the beginning of the conference so that we can help you make your slides look super awesome and increase your confidence around your presentations. We will have a lunch, we will have a get-together, so stay tuned. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up at the conference. And I think that's all I gotta say.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren and Kate. And Nick Vischer in the chat box just shared that Google Drive folder again. So if you're looking for it, it's now towards the bottom of the chat box there. So feel free to check that out and add things to it. So to get in the spirit of sharing an open discussion, I thought we could start off with a poll and just using the chat box to respond. Who today brought resources to share? You can just say me. Yay! I did see that there were a couple uploads to our including some to the topics we outlined in the web chat announcement. So I'm very excited to see, and I hope whoever uploaded those feels willing to speak up today and tell us a little bit about those. And another thing I think would be cool to hear from the audience would be, what data viz tools do you typically use in your work? So if you just want to type in the chat box, let us know. Are you strictly Excel? Do you use Tableau, Illustrator? What do you do to get your charts and other graphics done? Awesome. I'm already seeing new to me platforms listed. And I'm excited to hear more about some of these.
Yes, same here. I've never heard of Power BI. Is that how you say it? I don't even know.
Infogram, I've never heard of that. So this is fantastic.
Ooh, BI, that one sounds really interesting. I'm envisioning like fly eye view. Yeah, this will be really cool to see kind of how everybody, BI, okay, Power BI. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how, I'm going to copy this and jump in and dive in and see what all of these things do. So,
yeah, awesome. I'm mostly an Excel person myself, but often find limitations there that send me off looking for other tools. So it's great to have some other options. So some of the questions we were going to address today from our a sort of vague plan for the day, although we can definitely add in new topics. We're talking about timing and tracking data, creating maps for reports, finding attractive ways to lay out your visualizations and reports, and figuring out whether or not your visualizations are getting the message across to the people you need to speak to. So those are some of the things we are hoping to address. But like we said before, we can go off script. That's not a problem. So yeah, do you, let's see, Kate, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So when we were brainstorming some of these ideas that we thought were really interesting, one of the things I get asked about a lot from my museum clients and my cultural organization clients is how should they present, or what are some options for presenting tracking and timing data? And it's interesting because as a sector, we're doing that pretty frequently, right? Like a lot of us use tracking and timing as a methodology in visitor studies, but some of the great data viz giants, some of the folks that we'll talk about later that we look to for inspiration, they don't do tracking and timing. So they haven't really talked about some cool ways to visualize it. So it's been fun as it being sort of a pioneering thing for us to play with, but it's been tricky because we don't have as much guidance there as we might for like doing bar charts or for creating other sorts of viz that we might have more sources to look to. So I was hoping to start with maybe Lauren, because Lauren just did a recent one for a project we worked on together that was a super cool way, I thought, to visualize tracking and timing. And then I'd love to hear from any of you who have tried to visualize tracking and timing data in various ways, because I could totally use some inspiration. So that was mine to get us kicked off.
Yeah, and so I'm going to try my hardest to share my screen with you guys to just show you this example of something a little different that I tried. Are you guys seeing this document? Okay, cool. So we tried something a little bit different instead of kind of your typical heat map, just because this exhibit that we were evaluating, this is the Great Lakes Science Center. They did a new exhibit called Grow, and it's really cool. It's outdoors, but there's only really one entry and exit point. And so we were really curious kind of where are visitors going? It was just a very, very simple summative tracking and timing that we wanted to do. And so I was thinking of ways that we could kind of approach this question of where do people go a little bit more in a sense of pathways, because really we were observing people taking a specific path most of the time. And so to kind of show how that happened, I thought it would be more interesting to show this kind of interesting arrow display to show the way that people choose to go once they've entered the exhibit. So it's a much more simple way of showing that one kind of big decision point. And then once people either decided to go left, go right, or stay kind of in that main entry area, that gray arrow, they then made a second decision afterwards of either going left, right, or going straight forward into this building. So those two kind of big decisions, you know, your first stop or your second stop, those were something that really primed you for the rest of your visit. So I thought it was an interesting way to kind of dive into, you know, tracking and timing data at that really crucial point of decision where people are really deciding how it's going to go for the rest of their visit. So that's kind of just a different technique that I used. And I'm curious, just what does, can I explain the legend? It looks cool. So this is actually down below is not a legend. It's a whole separate piece to kind of show that data as a more proportional representation, because the arrows are not proportional to the percentages. You can see this blue arrow at the beginning of the decision tree. That's 49%. That's a pretty big percentage. Definitely not the same as the 12% that's on the right-hand side. That's much smaller. So the legend thing, this little thing that's called a sunburst chart, that's to kind of show the proportion instead of the way that these arrows are laid out, since it was a limitation of the visualization. So that said, it's a little confusing if you're just kind of glancing at this. It's not always, you know, super apparent what you're looking at unless you had read that whole explanation above. If I had done a really great job of clearly explaining what we were looking at, all of that. So there's definitely some limitations, and there needs to be some strong interpretation, and you kind of have to spend some time really looking at it to digest it in full. So I don't know, anyone ever tried doing a pathway diagram like this? Oh, and Kate's got another question. So if anybody's tried it, I'm ready to type. Kate's also asking, did you make any of the arrows proportional? Could I? Would it look weird? And could I lay this over the map instead? So those are some really cool ideas. So I did try to make these arrows proportional, and they're so big. The first two are so much of the proportion that the little tiny extra arrow is really hard to hide that. I think it's a good idea, but it depends on the medium that you're presenting with. And then overlaying the sunburst chart, that would be a really cool idea too. One of the reasons why the sunburst chart is down in the kind of bottom corner and it's not the only representation of this kind of decision is you're not able to reorder things so that they physically align with the way that you want them to. So do you see on that second layer of the decision map where there's kind of this coupe that's blue, and then there's the homegrown that's also blue, and they're both flanking the two ends after that straight gray space? That's because those blue parts are both that same blue direction in the above image, map image. Yeah. But because of Excel, you're not able to rearrange those little slices. So there's some limitations to the sunburst chart in just the way it's set up. So, it looks like there's definitely some other people that have tried this before. That's super exciting. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to check out what kind of ends up in our shared box. So everybody's doing a great job of of looking up stuff to share. I love it.
Yeah, Claire from the Children's Museum, I think, mentioned that she used icons to represent areas of a map instead of a floor plan to make it a little bit.
Cleaner.
Well, she said, in case your map is a weird shape, that can help, which I could imagine might happen at the Children's Museum, Indy. So, yeah, I really like that idea that you could still show flow, but it would be from icon to icon rather than a literal map.
Yeah, that's super smart because we're lucky that this was just kind of a box. So if it's a more complicated shape, that's a really good idea. Okay.
I'm also curious about people mentioning heat maps. I haven't had to visualize this kind of data yet in my own work, and I'm wondering, can heat maps show flow? And I'd be really curious to see an example of that. Like, I could picture how you would use a heat map to show density of people in different areas, but maybe I don't understand properly how they work. So share if anyone can illuminate me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that depends on kind of how you're collecting your data. So I don't know if you're trying to show kind of how people are congregating or how long they spend in a specific area, if that would change your value that you're inputting, but that would be a good idea.
I'm hitting refresh on our Google Drive folder because I see that people are uploading things as we speak. So maybe we can see, hold on one second. Oops. Does anybody who has uploaded something want to share? You could either type in the chat box and I can screen share your document if you want. Or if you don't want to be called out now, that's fine. But I do see that there's some stuff showing up in here, so it'd be cool to see.
Hey, it's Amanda. I can talk about the RKNA one I just put up. It's just one slide, the one labeled 2016 NMNH Think Well group.
Great. I'm going to screen share that. 1 second. Let's see.
Yeah, so this one was, we did a project for Think Well Group who is working on a visitor experience master plan for natural history. And they wanted to know about a lot of flow aspects from where people come up different entrance points to the second floor of natural history and where they go to. So this was all facilitated by slides. I don't know how well this works as a standalone, but looking at where, like, for example, so I have the green circle is anybody who came up that first staircase, 64% of people are going to Bones. That was the hottest spot that people are headed to. And then after that, the live butterflies, rotunda, those were people who only came up, walked around the rotunda and left, and then other people went into Moon. So it kind of shows where they dispersed to. So we have a slide like this for every single entry point to the second floor.
And is everyone seeing the correct visualization that Amanda's talking about? I just want to make sure I highlighted the correct. Okay, great. You can see it.
Oh, and the question about the ends. Yeah, so that was, I put in the ends because it was, we did, it was 100 or 200, I can't remember timing and tracking, but because it's divided across 6 different entrance points to the second floor, the ends for each flow are pretty small. So that question, and let me see what else came up. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. I think, does anyone else have an example they wanted to share? Okay, I see Sana. Am I saying your name right? Sana Dawes?
Hi, can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay, sorry, this is Senna. So I uploaded a a presentation because I can't figure out how to upload just the GIF alone. So you have to kind of like click through the whole presentation to the end. But I had to do a time and track of our grand hall space to kind of see how people use it, where people go when they first enter the museum, as far as which exhibits they go into first. So I asked all of my data collectors to indicate, I made a grid of the entire floor and had them all indicate like which section of the grid they entered in which order. And yeah, you just have to go like all the way to the end, basically. Don't worry about the stuff in the middle. And then I took all of that. I don't remember how I entered all of it, but I essentially made a bunch of PowerPoint slides of each kind of step that people took, and put them together with this online GIF thing. Yeah, I think that's it. If you make it big, like in presentation, it should maybe work. I don't know. I had to download it for it to work, but it just kind of shows the path that people take from when they enter to when they go into an exhibit. Hopefully it.
Is that working?
Right. Yeah, so it's pretty subtle, but it just runs on a loop. And so everyone starts at one of the entrances. I think this is for, both entrances. And then we can see that like people would go straight into Civil Rights First or Route 66, which are temporary spaces. And then are less likely their first stop is going to be World's Fair or the clubhouse. And so I made a couple of those for people who go into the Parkside entrance or the Lindell entrance, and it took forever because it's a matter of I did all this in PowerPoint. So you change the transparency of everything, each step. So it's like doing stop motion, except for time and track. But I think it was worth it, and everyone seemed to really like it, and it kind of gave us a sense of where people are spending their time. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And it's in the Google folder, so you all can view it there. All right. So it seems like we could almost do a web chat just around this, but we do have some other things I want to get around to sharing. But I think maybe this also means we just need to do more data viz web chat. So that's great, in my opinion. Well, next up, I had some questions about mapping, because this is something that I always struggle with. So I have a couple resources to share, but I also just wanted to put this question out to the group. What do you use when you need to create maps? I often find I want to put a map right at the beginning of a report to show, for example, all the sites that were involved in a project. So I'm going to screen share again and show you an example. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I've used Google Maps, and hopefully everyone can see this example map I have drawn up in Google Maps. Awesome, and other people are already sharing some of their map tools, so thank you for that. Please feel free to give lots of suggestions in the chat box. So Google Maps works for some things, but not so well for others. It lets you organize things in layers, which is nice. You can change the icons. You can edit them in a spreadsheet view. I won't go into all that today, but I think I have. No, I don't have a tutorial to share. But if you Google it, it's not too hard to find. I can probably locate one later and share that. But my beef with Google Maps is that I haven't found an easy way to display my data labels. It might be there, I just don't know how. And I don't like that I can't control the zoom so well. There's only certain zooms you can use. And then for Hawaii and Alaska, should I have sites up there, which I do, I have to go way out if I want to those limited ability to change that issue and think sort of a example one I found on the web. So I'll share that link in the chat box. And you can do heat map style things where it colors in regions. You can do, well, here's an example of the United States. And you should be able to do, it's thinking, so hold on one moment. Or maybe it's not working. Anyway, I used to use it to create similar pin dot maps, like the first one I showed you. But I have found that functionality doesn't seem to be working lately. So yeah, very open to all these suggestions of maps, map tools to use. And if anyone wants to share any of those particular resources, or maps you've created in the folder or in the chat, I'm very interested in seeing that. So Troy shared Mapbox. And I'll pull that up. Well, maybe I shouldn't just sort of free range explore right now, but Kate or Lauren, did you have anything to share on the mapping question?
I just dumped my favorite heat map making tool, which Kate actually showed me, into the chat box too. So it's this site called eSpatial. And the thing that I love about it is it lets you do some of those more aesthetic changes where you can, pick brand colors. You can pick colors that go along with whatever your color scheme is for your report and make your heat map kind of show the colors that you wanted. So the link that I sent along it kind of shows you all of those specifics of how to make those tweaks and changes. But I can show you, so if you click on that, you'll be able to see all those custom settings. But it's also free, which is great. So I love that.
Yes, I love the free ones. And ArcGIS, I know, can do so much, but I wonder if it's maybe a bit above my ability level. Another one I uncovered today is called Snazzy Maps, which has such a snazzy name, I can't help but share it. So I'm going to type that one in the chat box. I have not experimented too far with it yet, but I like the way it looks. So that's a possibility.
I like Brian's question. Well, I guess it's not a question, but it's just an interest that it's prompting an idea for me, which is he's saying something that he's interested in is generating heat maps with customized or drawn maps. And I don't know of any resources to do that, but I think if your data is small enough, that same kind of overlaying that Seno is doing just in PowerPoint would be an interesting way to kind of create a graphic of something that's a little harder to plot on a real map.
And Sena, we'd love to hear your suggestion for that.
Sorry, I'll just jump in really quick. So I have that problem because I need to spit out maps that are really specific to the St. Louis region. And so sometimes the regular, just like the city itself and then the county isn't quite enough. And so I tried to draw my own custom map on Google Maps by neighborhood, basically. But it essentially required me to have to look up the boundaries for each neighborhood, hand draw it on a Google map, and then you can download it as like a KML map file, I think, upload it to Excel, And then if you have the same exact wording of the map labels in Google Maps as you use in Excel, it can, the same way you would do 3D maps in Excel with like zip codes or something, you would do the same thing except with your custom map. And it like has worked sort of for me. It's not perfect, so I gave up on it because it was too exhausting. But that's kind of the only way I've found to like do the custom map sort of idea.
Yeah, that's smart.
There's a couple other map tools that they're fairly simplistic, but I've ended up using them several times for reports. And one of them is, let me see if I can find a link to it. It's just a Google drawing where you can easily recolor the different states. It's a template, and here it is. Oops. Let me screen share real quick. So can everyone see my United States map here? Again, this isn't smart in the sense that it's reading from data, but you can easily manually change the fill color on the states here and the outline color. You can drag them out if you wanted to, you know, highlight one in a separate box or something like that, or call more attention to it. And this has actually turned out to be pretty handy, and I like it a lot. So that is in our, I believe that's in our DataViz, our shared Google folder, and if not, I'll drag that there in a second. I can share it in the chat boxes as well. And then there's also an example for Pages. I'm not sure if anyone ever uses Pages, but once in a while for simpler reports I do. And it is a similar type of thing. Oops. The number of resources in our folder has exploded, so I have to surf around a little bit to find the right one here. Oh, no, I have it. No, that's a PowerPoint. Here it is. Oh, can't open it in Google, obviously, but well, I'll just let you guys download that one. But it's the one titled United States Map Graphic.pages. So that one, if you ever use Pages, it's a similar style tool as the Google Drawing one that I just showed you for maps.
That's super cool. So I'm gonna, oops, I guess I'll start my video. I'm never sure when to be visible and when not to be, but since this is my question that I thought of to ask everybody is just, where do you get inspiration from? So I know that I don't always specifically think about, you know, only going to Stephanie Evergreen. I love Stephanie Evergreen, but she's got kind of her specific thing she does, and it doesn't always apply to me. So and I have different problems that she hasn't solved yet. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get inspiration. And we, as a DataViz Fig, I've kind of taken the reins of the DataViz Pinterest board. I'm putting the link in here. And I'm also going to show you guys a little bit of what's on it, if I can, our crazy screen sharing. So this one, I think, will show it. This guy, this is our Pinterest board. And I think that it's a really cool place to share things. Oops, sorry, I'm clicking around too much. Share a lot of just different ideas and kind of ways that you can talk about information. There's a bunch of different, you know, rules for using text, things like principles of design that are on here. So we really love to share with each other just things that are inspiring us and giving us new ideas. So if you want to join our Pinterest board, we'd love for you to post your pins and inspirations. If you want to just come and browse it, please do. Take ideas that we've found and interesting and helpful for us. But yeah, where else are you guys looking whenever you're hoping for new ideas or you're encountering something that you're like, oh, I've never seen anybody kind of try to visualize this before? Or, you know, what are some problems that you've wished you had inspiration for? I've lost my chat box somehow by sharing the screen, so I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, it goes away. But people are sharing lots of great stuff. Nathan Yao,
Okay,
flowing
awesome.
data.
Yeah, these are great ideas.
Storytelling with Data is a blog I follow by Cole Nussbaumer. Probably saying that wrong. She's one that I follow.
It's always interesting whenever you've got your people that you follow closely and then you're like, oh, I've never said their name out loud before. I'll have to figure that out. Yeah, definitely. Okay, and I have a list of interesting listservs that are not necessarily specific to data visualization, but I also draw a lot of inspiration from non-data viz people, just by either, you know, watching like Creative Mornings interviews, things like that. So it doesn't have to just be linked to specifically data viz people. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, so Kate just posted the DataViz project that Senna recently shared on the VSA newsletter. That was a really cool, I kind of poked around and looked at that because it's a great source to remind you of different data visualizations that you might not be thinking of. And then it kind of dives in deeper. Yeah, and Nick Vischer's Instagram, I've been super excited about that. I'm going to post a link to it because he's been jumping. Yes, we're going to post it. It's public, so you have to. No. Yeah, it's really great for PowerPoints. It's been helping me. I know personally, I've just been getting really excited about it because it's been helping me really rethink ways to do kind of layouts, especially because I think Nick does a really good job with that. But it's an interesting forum to put it on Instagram because it's a lot smaller than maybe a whole blog post would be, but it's a really visual medium. So there, now everyone can see what we're talking about. Yeah, and so one of the things that I've noticed is whenever I go kind of to a DataViz conference or DataViz conference sessions, sometimes we're talking about a lot of the same stuff over and over again, but you really want like very specific, how did I do this? So I ended up finding and it does a really good job of showing you kind of more tough, hard to do data visualizations. But it also gives you good tips for kind of more broad ways to use Excel to its fullest. So I really like getting emails from them just because it's a helpful site that kind of goes in really deep, probably more than we need. And to be honest, I'm actually not sure if I've ever used anything from it, but it keeps me kind of thinking of new ways to approach things, even just still while using Excel. So, we're getting lots of good shares over here. Yeah, so go ahead.
Compiling these into a list is going to maybe take us a little while, so you guys will have to be patient after the chat.
Exactly. Yeah, and Echo Rivera, I've heard of Echo Rivera before too, so I'm glad that Nick's bringing her up.
Yes, Kate asked who wants to unmute and talk about some faves, so we would love to hand the mic over to somebody. And if there's something you want to show on the screen, we can always screen share it for you. So any takers?
Yeah, or any ideas that either you've been able to use before and it was kind of unique and different from your standard just data visualization, kind of diving more into that reporting piece, or something that you've never gotten to try before, but you think it could be a really cool way to share out with, reporting.
I'll just share that related to that, Lauren. I shared a link for Kylie Hutchinson's recent book, which is cool because it's really focusing on the reporting part. And I don't know, I mean, it's a book that she self-published, so it's not necessarily super polished, but the ideas are so cool. And I think that it's really refreshing to think about some ways that we might focus on the R part of DVR. So it's exciting to see how people are also putting things together visually for presentations and for reports, which is why I really like Nick's Instagram. So thank you, Nick. You have like 20 new followers now.
Exactly. I can't wait. I really want to either buy this book or find it on a table somewhere and read it to get all of these cool ideas. I also have, Nick, now you're on the hook. You've got to keep posting. So I briefly mentioned Creative Mornings, but I think that Creative Mornings is an interesting kind of forum where it brings together a bunch of different creative people and helps them kind of combine their creative juices and talk about issues that we've all faced, which could include things like burnout, inspiration, anxiety, things like that. But it's also a cool source to look at other people's presentation techniques that like to think out of the box. So that's one of the things that I like to do when I'm like doing my laundry or something. Just watch these different. Sorry, that's the same link. But yeah, I like to kind of get inspiration from other creative fields and presenters that are in the process of presenting and kind of borrow some of their ideas.
I had a question for the group. That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know Tufty's out there, and it sounds like there's some other people who kind of write about kind of what makes a good infographic versus ones that aren't so successful. And I'm wondering, is this a place where we could, if we're putting together something that is an infographic, that we could kind of run by the group, in the Google Docs or something like that, just to get feedback on if people have time to do that?
It's really cool you brought that up, Troy, because one of the original ideas for the DVR Fig was to hopefully do exactly that. And we haven't really figured out the best format. We recently, through VSA now, if you're a member of the DVR Fig, you'll have access to the Basecamp portal. And so all of you who just added your emails, we can add you to that as well, or you can put your email in now if you haven't yet. But that's a way where we thought we could definitely start a section where if you're working on something, a graph, a chart, a presentation, whatever, that it would be an awesome spot to get some feedback from this group. And now that this group has grown so much and there's clearly some good energy, I think that would be a really wonderful place to do it, and something that we could do between conferences that really keeps this group active and engaged. So I'm totally into that. I think it's a great idea. For some of you who know me, it's not going to surprise you, but some of the inspiration that I tend to go to are folks that focus on visual thinking outside of data viz. So for example, folks that think a lot about drawing, people who think about doing things offline first. And so those are some really cool resources too, and I'll add them to our resources link. But one of the things you'll hear from a lot of people who spend their life in data viz is the importance of connecting it in your hand first and doing something that's physical, that's tactile. And so I think some of those resources are really good too, to kind of get us out of our natural inclination to just start a PowerPoint or start in a Word doc or jump into Excel. So those are some cool resources too that I use for inspiration.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty cool, Kate, because one of the things that I really like to use as inspiration that doesn't always fall into the kind of more standard data viz world or within our field even is just looking at kind of magazines, the way that they try to communicate in a narrative format and do so in a really small, condensed way. They're trying to communicate information as best as they can quickly. So, and then they do it in a really beautiful layout a lot of times. So I get inspired from, print materials as well that aren't even intended to be, communicators of real data like ours. But there's also this really cool advertisement that I signed up to receive. I signed up to get junk mail, but it's called Mohawk Quarterly, Mohawk Maker Quarterly, and it showcases different people that are involved in making something across the country, and they send out one every couple of months. There's 4 per year, and it's really an advertisement for their paper because Mohawk is a paper company, but their layouts and their approach to creating this advertisement sample is so creative and interesting. I love to receive it. It's like a present in the mail. And then I think about it and I'm like, I'm just really excited to get junk mail right now. So yeah,
you can get cool stuff from unexpected places. I wanted to say, I saw, Melissa, you typed in about qualitative data analysis and in vivo. And I just was thinking about, I know that a lot of us spend a lot of time with qualitative data sets and thinking about what that means for data visualization. Lauren and I recently got to work with Stephanie Evergreen and Jenny Lands on sort of different ways to think about qualitative data viz. And I think it's an amazing subject for us to tackle, which probably deserves at least a full web chat of its own. But I was wondering, as we, approach maybe the 10 or so minutes left, if we could shift to thinking about what topics you think would be really great for another web chat, because I know that Claire and Lauren and I want to keep this up. We are loving this. This forum's proving to be really amazing. And I think it would be really cool to think about what topics resonate and that you would like to see, so we could maybe get those on the calendar. So if you want to either unmute and talk about it, or if you want to type in some of the topics that sound interesting to you, that would be so helpful to us.
I wonder if we could do a whole nother one on timing tracking data, if that would be useful to people. We got one yes.
it looks emphatic.
Nick, your idea too about like some step-by-step and making different charts is a great idea. I think it's a good thing for the FIG to think about what format would make sense for that, but I think that would be super helpful for probably all of us. So just to let you know, I saw that pass by in the chat box. Kathy, that's a great one too, using photographs and reports. And it seems like qualitative's definitely got some interest. Yes, I'm happy to demonstrate drawing. That's like my favorite thing to do, but y'all have to draw with me.
Yeah, I think that's worth repeating, because these chats are obviously most productive and useful to everyone when people participate, as everyone has been fantastic about doing today. So being willing to put yourself and your examples or resources out there is so great, even if you don't feel they're perfect. I would love to see one focused on report layouts too, as Brian brought up. I have some tricks for Microsoft Word that I use for developing templates, but I'm sure there's a lot I could learn on that front.
I'm wondering, as we see all these amazing ideas come in, if some of you who are suggesting them would like to sort of co-chair it with us or co-lead it. You can see that it's not at all about driving the conversation or doing a ton of talking, but just to bring a couple of good examples, get the conversation started. So if any of you are willing to say, yeah, I wouldn't mind helping with the qualitative one, or yeah, I would be cool with a layout one, we would be so happy to have it not just be the three of us. So if you're into that, we would love to hear from you too.
Connie just asked, what do we know about client reactions to different data viz? I don't know if we have time to dive too far into that, but that's something we had wanted to bring up today. How do people respond to visualizations? How do you know if they're helping or hurting?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk for a second on that one, although you're right, we probably don't have enough time to get into it deeply. But my favorite technique for gauging folks' reactions to data viz is to use data placemats, which I got introduced through American Evaluation Association. And I'm happy to share more about those if you don't know about them. We'll put some of the resources in the Google Drive and send them all out to you. But I think that those are really amazing because before you go into final report stage, you can test out how different data viz and presentation techniques go over with your audience. Not only that, but it's a really amazing way to get them into more of the data analysis process and to see what you're really doing and to understand where people are in data literacy. And it's just been a really incredible technique. Now it's one that I almost insist that my clients do with me because I learn so much about who they are, where they are, what they need, and what resonates. So that really helps me feel more secure in knowing that I'm creating a product that they can really use and that they'll really understand. So I'll share some on that because I think a whole sort of tutorial on data placemats and their use could be really interesting too. They kind of change my world.
And see, data viz literacy is also of interest to people. And I think that could also be a fantastic topic. And if we continue to record these chats, I feel like the sky's the limit for what we could cover, even if people aren't available to attend every single one. That's a lot of data viz books. I hate to interrupt the chat because I feel like that's a whole conversation unto itself. There's so much good stuff going on in there. Does anybody, I don't have anything specific left to share today, except to put a plug in for future web chats and also the VSA book clubs. So that's going to be launching soon, and it's going to be headed by Amanda and Sarah from the PD working group. The idea there is that everyone reads an article, usually from the Visitor Studies Journal or some other source and topic that is relevant to our field, and then gets together for a similar type of group discussion. So they're going to be running our first book club via Zoom, just like the same platform. And Amanda or Sarah, if you're on now, can you remind me the date for that? We'll send out an email so you'll all get it in your inboxes.
Let's see if I can dig for it very quickly. It
Oh,
is,
thanks, Amanda.
it's in April. 1 second. I know it's at the top. And moments away if my computer, April 23rd.
Awesome. Thank you. April 23rd, the first book club hangout. So we'll be sending an announcement about that soon so that everyone can set aside a little time to read the article and then get together for a discussion, which we hope will be similarly productive because this has been a fantastic chat today. I want to say a special thank you to Kate and Lauren of the DataViz and Reporting Fig for making this possible. I couldn't do these web chats. VSA couldn't do these web chats without people willing to speak up and help out and offer resources and advice. And so I really, really appreciate the help and also all the great participation today. It was really fantastic to hear from everybody.
Yeah.
Any plugs for the DataViz Fig in closing?
Just if you keep on going with all of these different resources, it's super helpful. I'm learning a ton and I can't wait to come back and read the chat again because I feel like there's so much that I missed while talking. But yeah, I'm super excited about this, and yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope to see you all in Chicago. If not, we will miss you, but keep in touch because I just hope this keeps growing and gaining energy. This has been so super cool and really exhilarating. So thank you, and we will get these materials to you soon.
I just want to say right before we close that I'm creating a doc in our shared folder since there's been so many things people listed here that aren't necessarily files that they can upload. So I just created a Word doc in the Google folder that you can just paste links or what have you there, since it seems like the conversation would keep going if I weren't about to cut us off. So here comes the link to that. If you have additional things you think of later that you want to share just by pasting as you have been in the chat box. So thank you all so much. And we'll see you at the next web chat, I hope.